What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. Today we have a really big project in our hands. We're K-swapping this EF wagon right here. You may or may not have seen this car on the channel before, but this car belongs to my buddy Chewy, and originally this is a dual point automatic car, and we're going to be doing a 5-speed conversion with his pedals right there in the back, and we're going to be throwing in a K24 swap right there. So in this video, it may be a span of several days, but I am going to try to cover everything you need to do and everything you're gonna need to put a K-swap in your EF. Now, I'm doing it on the wagon. It applies the same way for the 4-door, the hatch, and the CRX, since they are practically the same chassis, just extra doors and different butts. I'm gonna show you guys the engine in just a second here and everything else you're gonna need to get the engine planted in the engine bay. But first, I'm gonna open up this mail right here that I just picked up from the P.O. box. So, where's my razor blade? I have no idea what this is and who it came from, but it says that it came from Canada, and the sticker's kind of scratched up here. It says Sticker Guy Bob, SGB. Check it out, right there. No, don't focus on my ugly self. There it is, right there. It's pretty bulky. I don't know if you can see the thickness of that. It's pretty fat. I'm gonna assume it's some type of sticker because I can't see it through the light. But we're gonna open it now. Oh shit. And make sure there wasn't like a sticker or something going that far back. But thickness. Come on. Oh shit. What the fuck? Wow, this is so cool. Like, it is so freaking dope. Yo, check this out. Look at that. That is a picture render of my car, my beloved wagon. And it says Young Static, dude. The font, it's sick. And oh, and it's a carbon fiber back too. Oh my god. Let's open this up real quick. Right here's a note, and it says, "Hey buddy, you've been sent my sticker before, but not by me. I thought you may like these to send to your followers. Sticker Guy Bob." What have I received before? Sticker Guy Bob. I don't remember, honestly, but yo, thank you very much for these stickers. I'm gonna have to run this by my cousin. I think by sending these to my followers, for every merch you guys purchase on the website, built2drive.bigcartel.com, doesn't matter what it is. It can be one sticker, it can be a sweater or a shirt or anything that's listed on our website. I will toss in a sticker for you guys, and we're gonna do this until we run out. Sticker Guy Bob, thank you very much for these. I freaking love it. The fact that it's transparent as well too only makes it even sicker. Now let's get to the K-swap parts. So as I've mentioned, as far as today goes, I'm just trying to prep the engine bay and get the engine planted in the car. Now I have everything kind of laid out right there. I'm gonna give you guys a brief overlook on everything you're gonna need to get the engine into the car, and then everything else that we're gonna need to get it all buttoned up and running. So some of the stuff is not here yet, but the main necessity is here to get this engine to the car. Obviously, doing a K-swap, you're gonna get an engine of your choice. This one, we got it from the junkyard. It's a K24A4. It's not the greatest engine of the K-series lineup, but it was super cheap. I think we paid about $140 for it, the way you see it right here from the junkyard. So that's definitely a super come up, and it is a great start to K-swap in your chassis, because now you have the K in your car and you can always save up for a bigger engine or a Frank or a different model. So I'm not gonna get into full details about the completeness of the engine. That's totally up to you. Make sure you got your alternator, starter, so on and so forth. So we have a Type S transmission from an 02 R6 Type S. This is originally my transmission, but I have a Z3 LSD in there now. So I sold this to him. He has the clutch inside the car. He has a flywheel here. We have all the bolts, the throw-up bearing, the pilot bushing to get all the transmission part installed onto the engine. And again, today's goal is to complete this engine before we throw it in the car. Now, to get this engine into the car, we're gonna need aftermarket motor mounts. Now, my preference of choice would be Hasport. I've been rocking with Hasport for shit as long as I can remember. So we have the EFK2. These are the version 2 K-swap mounts for EF. This gives you the ability to adjust the height of the engine Two heights. If you're running a K24, you can run the bottom bolt and that'll drop the engine lower so you can clear the hood. And if you want ground clearance, obviously you wouldn't use the top bolt. So these are Hasport units, and he also has the Hasport post mount since the Accord one is different. You're gonna need the CRV, the R6 Type S, I believe the Z3 are the same, or an aftermarket one like this one right here. This is a nice quality billet piece, and you know, the thing I like about Hasport is that they give you every single hardware needed for every hole that requires a bolt. This right here is going to get this engine hung into the car. I believe for all the chassis other than the EK, maybe I'm wrong, but you have to knock out the transmission motor mount, and then you have to get this guy aligned into place and then weld it in place as well too. Now the other chassis like EGs and DCs, they just use bolts. You don't have to weld it, but we weld them because this bolt right here, I mean, it doesn't line up, but this bolt hits the pulley. We only have one bolt up here, and everything else needs to be welded if we don't want this to bow outward. So this one has to be modified. I've already done so. You can see it right there. If you guys want to see how I did that, you can check out the last video. So doing the K-swap in our non-K chassis, we have to get K-swap header. In this case, we have some no-name brand big tube header for the K24. And because our chassis is so tight in the engine bay, we have to modify our subframe. I don't think I modified it enough, but then I can't go back any further because we're already reaching our 14mm thread hole. So I gotta hang the engine in place, put the header up, and see how much more I need to modify. There are other headers in the market that allows you to put it on the engine without modifying the rear subframe, like the KTUNED budget one, which I have, but that's personally mine. And you wouldn't have to notch the subframe as much as I did for these big tubes. That's totally up for you to determine because of your header choice, but for us, that's what we had to do. Shifter boxes, you can use a stock shifter box with or without the base plate. That's a stock RSX shift box. But because we want to keep this kind of sleek under the console, we have the hybrid racing no cut shifter box. This is an older unit, but it worked in my car before I upgraded it, so Chewy has mine. This mounts underneath the tonneau. This comes up the hole where the shift linkage is normally going through, and then this sits under the center console, and that's all you're pretty much going to see inside the car. In relations to this, your shift cables have to match your shifter box, and your cables have to match your transmission. Now that is my transmission, that is also my shifter cables, and this used to be my box, so everything here should work out perfectly fine. The engine harness, you can use 0204 RSX Type S base model, and then you can buy a K-Series conversion harness, which would then connects to the stock harness that connects to your chassis, allowing you to run the stock harness. And you don't really have to get too pricey into this, but because Chewy wants to be a badass, he has himself a Rywire unit right here, full mil-spec Raychem harness, and this is pretty pricey, but it's definitely going to clean up the engine bay a lot. Again, this is totally up to you on what you want to run as far as harness wise. You can run stock or aftermarket. There's a cheaper aftermarket version of this, so you can save some money there while still having a clean engine harness, making your engine bay looking a ton more cleaner. Now, because we don't have a stock ECU for the K24, we do have this ECU right here from an RSX base model. Chewy had this sent out to Honda and got the K-Pro installed. This is pretty pricey, but if you guys really want the bang for your buck, K-Pro, K-Tuner, AEM, I would recommend something like this if your car is something that's going to be seeing the track or, you know, drag, or going to be making some power. You need something tunable. Now, if you're running AC or power steering in your car, you don't need this piece, but because we're not running either or, we do have a KTUNED AC power steering delete kit right here. This comes with all the belts and everything you need to eliminate AC and power steering in your engine. And this right here relocates your alternator from sitting on the top to sitting on the bottom. All these little items are going to be based off your chassis, and because we're putting a hydraulic transmission into a car that originally came cable, in this case automatic, we do have a JBTUNED clutch line right here. We do have a hydro conversion that we're going to be installing in the car, and we have a KTUNED slave cylinder here as well too. And inside the car, we have a DIY bracket with a stock DC master and reservoir. Nothing fancy, and this right here will definitely get the job done because all of my cars has the DIY bracket using the OEM unit just like that. There are companies out there that sell swap axles like Insane, Hasport, Drive Shaft, but in our case, we're trying to keep this cost friendly, so we do have some junkyard RSX base model axles. Now the base model are the same length as the Type S, but the base model comes with 32 millimeter ends, and this is going to fit into the stock hub of this car perfectly fine with the matching half shafts. So we have that ready to go. I'm going to stop talking, guys. I think we're really deep into this video now. I'm going to assemble the clutch, flywheel, and all the transmission to the engine, and then I'm going to try to get the engine in place so we can modify the rest of the things we need to do to plant the motor in place. Alright guys, update. So we have the clutch, flywheel, pilot bearing, release bearing. We got the transmission installed, and then I mean, all I did was motor mounts, because the accessories and stuff I'm not worried about it just yet, because the engine is coming back out. I didn't do the alternator, the brackets, and all that. I just want to get the engine hung into the car so I can figure out the placement for that guy and figure out if I need to trim more for the rear subframe to clear the big tube header. Now the Hasport kit is a real nice solid, you know, kit, but damn, they don't have any instructions for their bolts. There was a ton of them. I didn't know which one went where. There was different length, but I kind of sort of figured it out. There were 4 of these little guys right here. They were all the same size, and I assumed that these were for the rear bracket to the subframe, because they all use the same pitch and they're all the same length. So this is bolted in place. I found out there was 2 of these length, and this one fit perfectly with the bracket to this rear mount. And then kind of have those set away. The super long one is for the passenger side motor mounts, so I got that kind of sitting in place as well too. These 3 right here were obvious because the motor mount itself has like this gap in there where the Allen head goes into the motor mount like so. And then these guys right here has their own bolts as well. So this one right here requires a nut because it's studded. Now this transmission is studded on this one as well too, and the kit provides actually 2 bolts that goes into that spot, which are these guys right here. So in my case here, I'm going to use 2 studs. I'm using one provided nut from Hasport, and this one right here I'm going to be using another 17 mil nut that I'm going to have to find, and then I'm going to use one of the Hasport bolt right there. These 2 right here, one short, one long, I believe is for the post mount. And the post mount has, you know, one that goes all the way out right here, and then there's one that stops because of this bolt going through. So the short goes here, long goes here, and I think that's pretty much all of the bolts that came with the kit. Now Chewy's fancy, so he got the Hasport post mount right here as well too. This one came with his own kit, and then I believe there's 2 sets of holes because Hasport does offer a lean mount, which leans the engine forward, and that's what these other 2 holes are for. Comes with a spacer. These are all installed, and I think now I'm gonna jack the car up, slide this underneath, bolt everything up, bolt that bracket up. I did prime the area underneath the bracket, because once the bracket is fit into place, I'm gonna tack it then and there, remove the engine out, fully welded, paint it, get it that ready for Chewy. Once I situate that, I'll work my way to the rear cross member for the header clearance. Alright guys, so we got the engine planted in the engine bay here. It's looking really good. The EFK2 dual height mount kit definitely helps a lot with the K24 and the ugly intake manifold. Chewy is going to get an RBC later down the road, but you know, granted, he's spent a lot of money just to get the swap rolling already. That, you know, it's going to have to come a little bit later, but you can see right there, that's just a cover on the intake manifold, and then the intake arm itself, it's what's sticking up. It's looking very promising as of right now. So that one's bolted in place. The rear is bolted in place as well too, and the driver's side, I got 1 bolt bolted in place to hold the bracket. You can see it sits really flush already. So I'm gonna whip out the welding machine, tack this whole end right here, tack this end over here, and then we'll move to the header, figure out what's going on with that, and then we're gonna have to pull the whole engine back out. So I was able to snake the big tube headers up into the head, and you can see there's 1 bolt right there, and the flange is not flush to the head at all. There's a good like maybe inch gap, and that's because runner number, where is it at? Runner number 2 right there hits the subframe and the bracket. That's not allowing me to get the flange flushed on the head. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark it, and I'm gonna trim just that runner. The other three clears perfectly fine. 2's over there. This guy right here has plenty of gap. You can see it right there. And I'm gonna trim it, see if I can get it to fit. And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to talk to Chewy about trading this big tube, no name, for my KTUNED budget header. And it'll actually work out better for him because he has a 2.5 exhaust. This is a 3-inch outlet, I believe. And if that's the case, then I'm gonna have to whip out my KTUNED header, trade him for this, and I know for a fact that the other one will fit without any further mods, and we can further make progress. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark this now and trim ever so lightly until it fits. Engine came out a little while ago. Got the subframe modified even more and modified into the houseboard subframe bracket right there. Painted everything black. Hopefully it fits. If it doesn't, I'm gonna ask Chewy if he wants to dink up one of the runners on the header to fit, or trade for my KTUNED unit. I got this right here stitch welded right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, and right there. I did this a little earlier and primed it because Chewy is going to take care of the paint whenever he has time. Right now I got to take off, and I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to assemble the engine with all of the stuff that needs to go on the engine before going into the car. In the garage right here, got my propane filled up, so I'm being nice and warm. So I gotta go now, and we'll be back.
I just like the sound of it.
Alright guys, so it's a new day, and I'm gonna show you guys what I did last night. As far as trying to put whatever I had on the table that Chewy provided on the engine. Now, the transmission came out of my wagon, and I upgraded to a Z3 LSD trans, and I had to use the RSX shifter mechanism right here on that tranny, so that way I can shift with my stock cables for the Type S. Pretty much you want to keep this matching to whatever shifter box cable you're using, and Chewy had to buy another one. So I installed this, block off the EGR, installed the KTUNED slave cylinder, and then on this side I had to remove the whole cover, remove some of the sensors I'm not going to be needing. My old fuel rail is right here, bolted in place. Unfortunately, this fuel rail is so big that we can't run the cover that says K24, but that probably won't fit with the hood anyways. Over here we got the stock tensioner thing pulled off. We have the KTUNED unit in place, and the reason why I don't have the alternator in place is because this is a K24 alternator and it does not work with the KTUNED unit. It needs the Type S model, which has, you know, the hole over here where it bolts into the water housing, and then there's 2 holes here that bolts to the bottom bracket right there. Obviously that's not going to work, but I talked to Chewy. He can't get an alternator in time, so he said as long as I can get the car to turn on without it. I am going to dry fire this without coolant, just in case if it has to come back out, I don't have to drain coolant, but I'm not going to run an alternator. There's 2 more things I need to do. I need to put a thermostat housing and a thermostat in place. Probably going to have to find a power cable to hook up the starter somewhere there. Route that around beforehand so that way I don't fight the intake manifold. I'm trying to avoid taking these guys off so that way I don't have to try to reseal it or get a new gasket or whatever the case may be. I'm also going to install the ride wire harness, like I said, just to get to everything underneath the intake manifold, and then it's going to be ready to be put into the car. Yo guys, check out my new bracelet and my $200 chain right here, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I mean, this is real baller shit right here, man, you know what I'm saying? Alright guys, we're going to be closing the video out here in just a second, but give you guys a little update here on what we did. It is kind of dark. Kerry and his brother is here, and thanks to these guys, we got the engine planted in place. And the reason why we lost a lot of daylight was because I decided to install the harness right here, and I built a charge harness. We installed these 2 before throwing the motor in the car, so I'm not fighting trying to put my big arms in between the manifold to get to the starter and all that. We did leave the alternator off because I don't have the correct one here, but the plug for the power is right there, and the alternator plug itself is right here as well too. So that should be pretty simple. I'm going to leave the traction bar off until we do so. Motor mounts are all tightened up except these two guys right here, so it's definitely planted in place, and it is going to be there the rest of the way. I'm not pulling it back out anymore. Have not test fitted the header yet, because I was actually working on Carrie's valve cover right there, because we are putting a catch can on it right now, and I still have to weld that up. But as far as my goal for this video, getting the engine in place, we successfully did that. That is gonna wrap up this video, guys. Tomorrow I'm gonna be doing the rest of the K-swap parts, like axle, fuel system, hopefully the harness into the car, and if I could squeeze in the 5-speed pedal assembly, I'll do that as well too. You guys should be seeing that in a couple of days. So if you guys enjoyed today's progress on the K-swap wagon, definitely hit the like button. And if you guys want to see the rest of the K-swap parts going into the car and hopefully the initial startup, definitely hit the subscribe button. Make sure to turn on the notification bell as well too. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.